Both Rudolf Kastner and Hansi Brandt later testified as to how the meetings went.
Warum verschonen Sie denn nicht wenigstens die Kinder, Herr Obersturmbannführer? Wir könnten Ihnen zusichern, dass wir uns Sie kümmern werden.
Jetzt verstehen Sie mich doch einmal. Ich muss diesen jüdischen Dreck aus der Provinz ausräumen. Da hilft kein Argument und da hilft auch kein Weinen.
Sie haben wahrscheinlich keine Kinder. Und deshalb haben Sie auch kein Mitleid mit ihnen.
Sie nehmen sich ja einiges heraus, Frau Brandt. Ich rate Ihnen, wenn Sie weiterhin so mit mir reden wollen, sich lieber bei mir nicht mehr blicken zu lassen. Auf Wiedersehen.
Wiedersehen, Herr Obersturmbannführer.
Eichmann was not prepared to spare one person's life as a result of humanitarian pleas. But he and his SS colleagues were prepared to listen to another argument. They announced that one train full of Jews could leave Budapest for a safe destination as a so-called gesture of good faith. The price per seat on the train, $1,000 US. On the 30th of June 1944, a train containing 1,684 Hungarian Jews pulled out of a Budapest station. A special committee on which Rudolf Kastner sat had decided the final passenger list.
The Kastner list was compiled on purpose like a Noah's Ark. Everybody and everything should be represented. If this will be the only part of Jews of Europe who remain alive, there should be a representative portion.
But this was a strange Noah's Ark. Massively overrepresented on the train were Kastner's own relatives and people from his hometown of Kolozsvár. And places were also given to several hundred rich Hungarian Jews who subsidized anyone on the train who couldn't pay.
If you have to save your life, you try it in every way. Even in a criminal way, if it comes to that. But you have to save your life is the first. You are nearest to yourself, whatever you try to say. And when we were in the train, we were afraid. We never knew what will be our future.
Eichmann had promised that the train would travel to neutral Switzerland, but it didn't. At Linz, in Austria, the train stopped, and Jews on board were told to get out and take a shower.
I was standing naked before the doctor and looking very proud into his eyes, and thought he should see how a Jewish woman is going, a proud Jewish woman is going to die. Because most of us knew that in Auschwitz, from the taps, there didn't come any water but the gas. And from the pipes came fine, warm water. Afterwards, we dressed up and returned to our train. It was a very relieving experience after we were ready to die there.
The train traveled on to Bergen-Belsen camp in Germany, where those on board stayed for up to 6 months before the Nazis finally allowed almost all of them to travel to neutral Switzerland. The 1,600 Jews who had left on the Kastner train in June represented less than 0.5% of the Hungarian Jews deported to Auschwitz. The spring and early summer of 1944 was to be the most notorious period in the history of the camp. The 4 crematoria with gas chambers were struggling to cope with the numbers the Nazis wanted to kill. 2 of them lay here, in the western part of the Birkenau complex, with the gas chambers above ground. 2 more were positioned close to the railway line that took new arrivals into the heart of Birkenau. These had the gas chambers in the basement. The Nazis had hugely increased the number of Jewish prisoners in the Sonderkommando they made work in the crematoria, in order to deal with the massive numbers they wished to murder. So much so that a crematorium and gas chamber like this was operated by around 100 Jews and just 4 Germans. The torment endured by the Sonderkommando, forced on pain of their own immediate death to assist in the killing process, is one of the most shocking parts of the history of Auschwitz.
When people was in that gas chamber, you could hear some kind of a voice calling God. It looked like those voices coming from kind of a catacombs, which I still got them, those kind of voices, I still got them in my ears.
These wire columns contained the Zyklon B gas pellets which were lowered in from above by the Nazis. And while it was always the Nazis themselves who committed this act of murder, it was the prisoners of the Sonderkommando who had to perform the horrendous task of collecting the bodies, taking them out and up a small lift to burn, either in the ovens of the crematorium or increasingly in the open air.
When the big, transports from Hungary came in, then were daily, they wanted to finish them fast. That's why they had the pits to go through.
This photograph, which a Sonderkommando risked his life to take, shows bodies lying by the open cremation pits in 1944.
Every day is burning dead bodies every day, every day, every day. You got used to it. We knew it. If we want to do that, we had a bullet in our head. It was like a robot.
On occasion, when killing small numbers of prisoners, the gas chambers were not used, and the Sonderkommando were forced to stand just inches away from the murders.
We had to take them, they bring one by one, we take them by the ears, and behind him was an SS, shoot him in the back. The guy would come down with a lot of blood, was some of us there with the water putting out. After a while, you don't know, nothing bothers you. That's why your conscience, gets inside of you and stays there until today. Somebody else is inside of me that tells me from time to time, you get awake, what happened, why we did such a thing.
By now, the Allies knew about this place and its role as an extermination camp. Gradually, from early 1944 onwards, the level of knowledge about what was happening here had been increasing among the Allies, thanks to the escape of a handful of Auschwitz prisoners and the work of the Polish resistance. This culminated in a document which drew together the available intelligence and which came to be known as the Auschwitz Protocols. It included sketches showing the position of the major crematoria and gas chambers at Birkenau. As a result, from June 1944, Jewish organizations asked that the railway lines to Auschwitz and the gas chambers of the camp be bombed. Requests which reached the American government only a few weeks after the landings on the D-Day beaches. Assistant Secretary of State John McCloy rejected the request, saying the bombing was impracticable and would lead to diversion of considerable air support that was essential elsewhere. A clue as to the strength of McCloy's opposition to the bombing requests comes from this inter-office memo, where his own assistant, Colonel Gerhardt, writes, "I know you told me to kill this." In Britain, requests to bomb Auschwitz were once again referred to the Americans, and so the idea died.